All right, we're going to review topic 5, the human body. And so for this, we're going to look at organization in human bodies. The human body is made up of cells. All humans and most other organisms begin life as a single cell. This single cell is called a zygote, and it's resulting from the fusion of an egg and a sperm. The nucleus of this cell has all the genes that it's needed to become a complete organism. Humans grow as a result of mitosis, or cell division, and this quickly increases the number of cells in the body until there are many trillions of cells. And since all new cells come from the same single cell, they all share the exact same DNA. As cells divide, they begin to develop into specialized tissues, and this is called specialization or differentiation. And they love using these words on the Regents exam. So this process is involved where a cell changes to have a special shape and function. So for example, your cells are going to specialize and become muscle cells or eye cells. And they can turn specific genes on or off to do that. So for example, a white blood cell has turned off all the genes that are needed to make skin, bone, or nerves. It still has those genes, but only the genes needed to be a white blood cell will remain turned on. So it's just flicking switches, gene switches basically, that determines what that cell's job is going to be. As the body continues to develop, tissues will work together to form organs. And then organs work together to form organ systems, and organ systems will work together to help a person maintain homeostasis. They love asking at least one or two of these levels of organization questions. So make sure you know you start out with an organelle, a cell, tissue, organ system. Okay, our first body system that we're going to cover, and I know that we didn't really do these topics in class, so this is really just going to do an overview. And then you're doing a few specific lab activities during class. But the nervous system regulates your body with electrochemical impulses. The chemical portion of a nerve impulse is called a neurotransmitter. It's a type of protein. It has a specific shape, and it'll only work if your cells have that special shaped receptor to receive a neurotransmitter. A stimulus is a change in the environment that an organism responds to. Neurotransmitters are released by one nerve cell and received by chemical receptors in the cell membrane of the next nerve cell. The shape of the receptor molecule determines which neurotransmitter it can receive. A nerve cell is also called a neuron. The main organs of the nervous system are the brain and spinal cord. The spinal cord controls reflexes and relays impulses between the brain and the body. So reflexes, like touching a hot stove, that's going to just go straight through your spinal cord. It takes too long for that message to go up to your brain, for you to process what you should do about it, and then to send the signal back to your hand to pull it away. So that even if it's a split second, it saves a lot of skin damage, just going right to the spinal cord and then back out to your arm. On this diagram down here, you're going to label a few things. So number 1 is pointing to the dendrites. So you're going to write out dendrites, D-E-N-D-R-I-T-E-S, dendrites. Number 2 is pointing to this long part called the axon. And then number 3 is pointing to the axon terminal. So the message is going to go from left to right, from this nerve cell to the next nerve cell. And so you should probably draw an arrow going from the left to the right. And so the neurotransmitter is going to be released at space number 3 across, and it's going to float across the little gap there called the synapse, and it's going to be received by the dendrites of the neighboring cell. And then it's going to flow down the axon. And then when it gets to the axon terminal, you have muscle tissue here at number 5. And it's going to tell that muscle whether it needs to contract or relax, whatever signal is being sent to that particular muscle. All right, our next system is the endocrine system. It works in a similar way to the nervous system as far as helping you respond to the environment, but it's going to use mostly just hormones to regulate the body. A hormone is a chemical messenger secreted by endocrine glands, and it is a protein. Hormones are slower than nerve impulses, but they have longer lasting effects. Hormone levels are controlled by feedback mechanisms, and we'll do some activities in class about feedback mechanisms. Receptor molecules on the surface of a cell membrane will receive hormones. And as with all proteins, it's the shape of the receptor molecule that determines which hormone it can receive. So here's an example of a feedback mechanism, very simple for maintaining your blood sugar. So if you end up like eating a big meal, you end up with higher blood sugar. This is in a normal person. Your pancreas will release insulin or secrete insulin into your blood, and what happens is the insulin kind of opens the door to your cells for sugar to go into your cells, and that lowers your blood sugar overall. And then if your blood sugar gets too low, then your pancreas will secrete less insulin, but it'll actually secrete something called glycogen to increase your blood sugar. So this is what they call a feedback mechanism. A change in one area results in a change in the other area. And then this image is just showing you how you have an endocrine gland releasing a hormone, which is in this black letter X shape, and it has a particular shape to it. You have all these other cells in your body, but they only can receive the signal if they have the correct shaped receptor on the cell, and that's what structure B is pointing to. Those are receptors. Structure A has receptors, but they're not the right shape, so it's not going to do anything. It'll have no effect on cell letter A. The pancreas makes insulin and glucagon, which control blood sugar. A common mistake is saying that insulin lowers blood pressure. Insulin and glucagon directly control blood sugar levels, not blood pressure. Adrenal glands make adrenaline when the body is under stress. This is something to remember when you get that, you get in a car accident or something traumatic happens, you get the shakes. That's your adrenaline that's kind of making you feel ready for fight or flight response. Testosterone is the male sex hormone. Estrogen and progesterone are going to be the female sex hormones. And they're made in the gonads, so they're made in the testes in males and in the ovaries for females. And these are all different types of endocrine glands. Here on this diagram, it's just pointing to several different types of endocrine glands. You can label A as the hypothalamus, or I'm sorry, label A as the pituitary gland. B is the thyroid, and F is pointing to a very much the same spot. It's called the parathyroid gland. Letter C is pointing to the pancreas. Letter D are the ovaries, and letter E are pointing to the adrenal glands. Circulatory system is our next system. It's going to help move materials through the body to the organs and cells that need them. The transported materials include things like water and nutrients from your intestines to all the cells of your body. It's going to transport oxygen from the lungs to all the cells of the body. Circulatory system will transport hormones from your glands to your target cells. And it's going to transport waste products from the cells to your excretory organs so that your body can get rid of those wastes. Materials usually enter and leave the blood through diffusion. Remember, diffusion is the process in which material moves from high to low concentration. So for example, there's a high concentration of oxygen in the lungs, so oxygen will diffuse from the lungs into the blood where there's less oxygen. You have capillaries, where these are microscopic blood vessels where diffusion occurs. They're very thin-walled, very tiny, and it's very easy for molecules to diffuse across that membrane. Then we have the heart. This is the pump that drives the circulatory system. You have red blood cells that carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. And then hemoglobin is the protein in your red blood cells that carries the oxygen. You have plasma, which is the fluid part of your blood, and it transports everything except for oxygen. So there's things like glucose and salts and stuff that are dissolved in your plasma. And then the last part of your blood is the platelets. or not the last part, but another portion of your blood are made up of platelets, and they're cell fragments, and they're going to help your blood clot. Some common mistakes is saying that the heart pumps oxygen to the brain. Technically it's true, but the heart pumps blood, which carries the oxygen, and it takes it everywhere in your body. Second mistake, oxygen diffuses into and out of the heart. No materials diffuse in and out of the blood when it's actually in the heart. It only occurs in the capillaries that are surrounding the heart muscle. Okay, moving on to your respiratory system. Breathing provides oxygen that's needed for chemical respiration, which uses energy from sugar to make ATP. It excretes the waste carbon dioxide, which is produced from chemical respiration. The diaphragm is the muscle that allows breathing to occur. Your diaphragm sits just under your rib cage, right above your liver. You breathe faster when carbon dioxide builds up in the blood, not necessarily when you need oxygen. The alveoli are microscopic sacs where oxygen enters the blood and CO2 leaves the blood. And the alveoli is surrounded by capillaries which pick up oxygen and drop off carbon dioxide. So this diagram is showing you a picture of your respiratory system. Letter X is just pointing to like your sinuses, your nasal cavity. But you can see how you go down the throat to the trachea, which has like the bumpy look to it. And that branches into the bronchi and then bronchioles and then down to your alveoli in your lungs. This is an enlarged picture of what's happening at one alveolus, where you have oxygen going from the lung into your blood, and then carbon dioxide leaving your blood into your lungs so you can breathe it out and get rid of it. Then we move on to your digestive system. This is where food is broken down so it's small enough to enter the blood and get into your tissues and cells. Food is broken down first mechanically by chewing it and then chemically. Nutrients and water are absorbed into the body by diffusion in the small and large intestines. So here's a diagram of your digestive system. Up here is your esophagus, and then you have your stomach. And this feathery looking thing under your stomach, that's your pancreas. That's going to release some digestive enzymes, and it works in your endocrine system too, so it functions in both body systems. The dark gray thing here is your liver, and the little bubble underneath, that's the gallbladder that stores bile, and that's going to be released into the small intestine to help with digestion. So the small intestine kind of loops in the middle here, and then it links over here on the left side of your picture, but it's the right side of your body, into your large intestine. The little doodad here at the end of your large intestine, or at the beginning of it, that's your appendix. So if for some reason stuff gets caught in there and it gets infected, that's what they end up removing when they do an appendectomy on you. And then your wastes will travel through the large intestine, and water will get absorbed here, and then it's producing feces, and then it'll be released through the anus. The digestive system is a one-way passage through the body that includes the mouth, stomach, and intestines. Food is moved through the digestive system by muscular contractions called peristalsis, and these are involuntary muscular contractions. Undigested food is eliminated as solid waste or feces. And then, just so you remember, urine is a liquid waste, but that comes from your cells, not from your digestive system. Common mistakes here. The digestive system excretes waste. The human digestive system does not excrete waste. The excretory system excretes waste. The digestive system gives you energy. The digestive system actually just gives you nutrients. Energy is gained when your body breaks down those nutrients for ATP in chemical respiration. Okay, now on to your excretory system. This is going to remove wastes that are produced by the cells of your body. And these wastes include salt, urea, carbon dioxide, and water. Your lungs are going to help excrete carbon dioxide and water when you breathe out. And your skin can excrete salts and water as sweat. Your kidneys excrete urea and water and other substances as urine. Your kidneys also control the amount of water in your body. Your liver is going to filter toxins and dead red blood cells from your blood. A common mistake that people make is saying the body excretes feces. Feces never enter the cells of the body, so technically it's not excreted. The correct term would be eliminated or egested. Okay, so let's take a look at this picture of your kidneys. You've got two kidneys up here, and they're connected by this tube down to your urinary bladder. This tube is called the ureter, and then letter X is pointing to the urethra. That's how urine leaves the body, either through the penis in males or just through the urethra in females. All right, now moving on to your immune system. The job of the immune system is to protect the body against pathogens. And a pathogen is a disease-causing agent. It could be something like virus, bacteria, parasite. They're going to make you sick. They're germs. White blood cells are the main components of the immune system. There's different white blood cells that have different jobs. One of the jobs could be to identify pathogens and tag them for destruction by other white blood cells. So it kind of slaps a big red sticker on them saying you have to destroy this. Another job would be to destroy the pathogen by eating it. There are big cells called macrophages, and they use something called phagocytosis, where they just kind of engulf that pathogen and destroy it that way. Another one can destroy pathogens using chemicals, and these chemicals will poke holes in the membrane of that pathogen and make it die. And then another white blood cell job is to make antibodies. And then antibodies are going to stick to pathogens and mark them for destruction by white blood cells as well. So antibodies are proteins, again, special shape, made by white blood cells to attack pathogens. Every antibody is specific in its action. It can attack one and only one type of pathogen. As with all proteins, this is because of the shape of the antibody has to fit its target, kind of like a lock and key. You know, you can only use one specific type of key in the front door of your house. Any other key is not going to work. At the bottom right is a picture of several different types of cells. Letter A is pointing to some white blood cells. Letter B is pointing to an antigen or a pathogen. And it's got those little spikes on it. Those are kind of the antigens naming that cell as not belonging. And letter C is pointing to some antibodies, and you can see they have a special little shape on them that binds to the pathogen, and then other white blood cells can come over and destroy that pathogen. So antigens are protein tags that identify a cell or virus. Your blood type is also determined by antigens. You can have A antigens or B antigens. You can have both or neither, and that determines your blood type. Any cell or virus with the wrong antigen will be seen as foreign by your immune system. It'll get attacked and destroyed. And that's why you have to match blood types before receiving blood or an organ transplant. A vaccine is an injection of dead or weakened pathogens. And then we have a new form, the mRNA vaccine, that's a little bit different. So the typical vaccine with the weakened or dead piece of the pathogen, it's going to trigger your body to make antibodies against that pathogen. It's effective against both viruses and bacteria, and it can only prevent disease. It does not cure it. So you want to get a vaccine before you get sick. Antibiotics are drugs that are used to stop infections by bacteria. Antibiotics will not work on viruses. And unlike vaccines, antibiotics can cure disease, but you have to wait until you're sick before you use an antibiotic. Some common mistakes. Antibodies are cells that attack pathogens, and that's not correct because antibodies are proteins, not cells. Okay, so here's some important interactions between body systems. The different systems of the body work together to maintain homeostasis. For example, nutrients from the digestive system are transported to cells by the circulatory system. Wastes from the respiratory system are removed by the excretory system. The nervous system and the endocrine system work together to control the body. The immune system protects the body from disease. Okay, we're going to take a look at some diseases and disorders. Typically, the exam asks you to name a disease, what causes it, its effect on the body, how to prevent it or treat it or cure it. And the most important diseases are following here. So AIDS is caused by the HIV virus, which is a pathogen. It weakens the human immune system, leaving your body vulnerable to other diseases. It is spread through bodily fluids, usually sexual contact, intravenous drug use, or blood transfusions. It's not very often with blood transfusions anymore, just because they test the blood before they use it. AIDS cannot be cured, but spread of it may be prevented by having a sexual abstinence, which means no sex, or having safe sex where you use condoms, or not sharing needles, and then they test blood before using a transfusion. Those are all things that are going to prevent it from spreading. Cancer is another disease. This is caused when the cell reproduces or divides at an uncontrolled rate, forming a tumor. Cancer cells do not specialize, and they take resources away from healthy tissue. It may be caused by radiation, chemicals like asbestos or cigarette smoke, and viruses, such as like the human papillomavirus. And treatments can include things like surgery, radiation therapy, and chemotherapy. Diabetes is another disease. It affects the body's ability to control blood sugar. Some diabetics may be treated using injections of insulin made by genetically engineered bacteria. Then we have sickle cell anemia. This is a disease that is a common genetic disorder found in African Americans, and it's caused by a mutation in the gene that codes for the protein hemoglobin. This little change substitutes an amino acid called valine for glutamic acid, and what it does is it changes the shape of the protein. So it's characterized by the bent and twisted shape of the red blood cells. It produces physical weakness and damage to the brain, heart, and spleen, and in some cases it may be fatal. We have allergies. They occur when your immune system overreacts to a harmless substance such as pollen. And then asthma can sometimes be a form of allergy caused by a reaction to dust particles in the air. And that takes us to the end of our human body systems. You can go ahead and do your homework for this topic.